Hello YouTube, my name's Roman and this is going to be the first episode for The Free Thinker. Now I got the idea to make this YouTube channel because there's a lot of YouTube channels about politics and not all of them really go into depth into the causes, the actual root causes of issues, and not a lot of them have a lot of substance. So I'm going to try to make a YouTube channel that really goes in depth into the policy causes, the economic causes, and the social causes of many of the problems that America is facing today and the world is facing today. So for this first episode, I'm going to be talking about American gun violence. Now, the U.S. has an unusually high rate of gun violence compared to any other developed countries. According to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 31,076 deaths occurred in 2010 as a result of gun violence. Data from the United Nations also depicts that the U.S. has 6 times as many firearm homicides as Canada and Germany. Now, the main cause of the higher rate of gun violence in the U.S., it's not a psychological condition that only affects Americans or an economic condition that's unique to the U.S. It's simply that there are more guns in circulation. According to Vox, America is 4.4% of the global population, but it houses half of all civilian-owned firearms in the world. Extensive reviews from Harvard School of Public Health Injury Control Research Center shows that across high-income countries, having more guns in circulation does lead to higher rates of gun violence. Take England, for example. With the enactment of firearm regulations, they saw lowered gun-related homicide rates. One year, they actually saw 15 gun murders in London. Think about that. London, a city of 8 million people, and they had 15 gun murders in a year. 90% of police officers in England don't even carry guns. So you see this trend also appears within the US. States with more guns have higher rates of homicide. Now, while federal law requires licensed firearm dealers to conduct background checks, unlicensed dealers don't have any of these restrictions. So this is where a lot of people buy guns who are, for example, on the terrorist watch list because they buy it from a gun show which doesn't require background checks. According to Giffords Law Center, 42% of U.S. gun owners acquired their most recent gun firearm without a background check. Other countries that require background checks see lower rates of firearm violence. For example, in the UK again, after 8 years of campaigning, they actually put in strict firearms regulations, so they have a very scrutinized, restricted, vigorous background check before any buyer wants to purchase guns. And just like alcohol, they prevent any person under the age of 21 from buying high-capacity ammunition magazines as a way to protect public health. Now, what the opponents of firearm regulation argue is that other factors, such as mental illness, are more responsible for gun violence and gun ownership. Oh, think about this argument for a second. So, first of all, it's assuming that the U.S. is more mentally ill than any other country. Why? Like, what is it about U.S. culture that could cause Americans to be so much worse off mentally than other people in the world? That right there, it's just such a demeaning argument. I can't believe anyone buys into it. Even the other argument is has to do with gun culture. That even in areas where gun culture is really popular, where people go out hunting on the weekends, and among people who say guns are part of their culture and it's really owning guns is really important to them. According to the Pew Research Center, 84% of Americans, of all Americans, support background checks for private sales and gun shows. And 89% of all Americans support banning the sale of guns to those with certain mental illnesses. However, special interest groups such as the NRA often donate money to politicians to prevent these regulations from being passed. I mean, the NRA has contributed so much money, and some other real conservative individuals and organizations contribute so much money that politicians, like rather than following the popular will of the people, where some gun regulations are popular across 84%, 89% of all Americans, they do the will of the NRA because they're afraid of losing the NRA's support. And that's what happens when you let money into politics. Okay.